Hello viewers, here is another question on quantitative reasoning. This is the sixth question on quantitative reasoning with assessment. So I have in my previous videos, you will notice that I do the questions in series, and each of the questions, like question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, has assessments in them. So in this question 6, we have a sample of this nature. So we have three samples. Like I said earlier, whenever you're working with quantitative reasoning, it is ideal to work with 2 or 3 samples. Working with one sample is not okay. Like it is not ideal. At least when you work with one sample, you should be able to apply the same formula on the other samples to be sure that the formula you derive at is correct. So looking at this nature of this quantitative reasoning, we have 2 variables that are in form of currency. We have years and we have the rate. This one is in dollars, this is in pounds, and this is in naira. So looking at it, the concept of simple interest should come in place, because that is where you have your principal, your rate, and the time. And again, you'll notice that each of the samples has 2 variables that are in form of currency. 2 variables in form of currency. Like we have this dollars, we have this in pounds, we have this in naira. And when you're dealing with the question on simple interest, which is your principal, your rate, and the time, when you have 2 values that in form of currencies, the higher one should be your principal and the lower value should be your simple interest. So the formula for simple interest, which is this simple interest, which is SI for short. We have the principal, which is P for short. Then we have the time, which is the T for short, and we have the rate, which is the R for short. So the formula for simple interest, which is SI, is your principal times rate times time divided by 100. Or it can be RT divided by 100. So like I said earlier, this one that is in form of percentage is my rate. This one that is in form of years is my time. This variable that is in form of currency, like these are in form of currencies. Like I said earlier, the smaller one should be your simple interest, while the bigger one should be your principal. So we have the simple interest, we have your rate, this is my time, and this is my principal. Simple interest, rate, time, and my principal. So let's check for how to go about it. Like for instance, here is the nature of the assessment. You can see there are some questions. So I have assessment that are 1 to 10. Like it's more than enough to keep you busy. And if you have issues or if you're confused, kindly send me a DM to go over it so that we can go over it together. So we have question 1 of this nature. Like this one now is this is missing, which is the simple interest. In question 2, this is missing, which is the principal. In question 3, the time is missing. In question 4, the time is missing. In question 5, the time is missing. Here, simple interest is missing. Here, the simple interest is missing. Here, the time is missing. Here, the principal is missing. And in question 10, the simple interest is missing. So it is important for you to know how to, like, if your simple interest is missing, you should know which formula to apply. If your principal is missing, you should know the formula to apply. If your rate or your time is missing, you should be able to know the formula to apply. Now let's go over step by step on how to make each of the variables the subject of the formula. Like I said earlier, when you are solving quantitative reasoning, the concept of making a variable the subject of the formula can never be overemphasized. Like, you have to understand that concept before you can be able to solve questions on quantitative reasoning. Quantitative reasoning is more of like a game. It's like you are playing a puzzle. Like, you'll be given some things, there are some things that will be missing. You have to want to look for what the value that is missing. That's just the basic concept of quantitative reasoning, which is the same thing with the making a variable the subject of the formula. So let's go into it proper. So the formula for simple interest, which is the basic, is principal times rate times time over 100. Here's the principle. That's this. If your simple interest is missing, this is the formula to apply. Now, to find your principal, or to make your principal the subject of the formula, you are still going to make use of this formula. Simple interest equals to principal times rate times time over 100. So I have two equations, of which one part of it, which is this left hand side, is in form of a fraction, and the right hand side is a whole number. So we need to change this to a whole number, to a fraction, by simply writing divided by 1. The next step is that whenever you have two fractions that are separated by an equation, but by an equals to sign like this, you just have to cross multiply. So when you cross multiply, is going to be 1 times principal times rate times time. That is 1 times everything here will be this. That will be principal rate times time divided by simple interest times 100. It is simple interest times 100, or SI 100. So we want to make P, which is the principal, the subject of the formula. Now, what is the coefficient of P? That is, what are those values or those variables that are attached to P? So the variables are RT. So just divide both sides by RT. Divide both sides by RT, so that by the time you this RT cancels this RT, my P is left alone. So my P becomes simple interest times 100 divided by RT. So this is the formula to apply when you are given, if your principal is missing. Now, to find the rate, if your rate is not given, so you are still going to make use of the basic formula, which is simple interest equals to principal times rate times time divided by 100. You change this to a fraction. You cross multiply. So 1 times everything here will be PRT. So we have PRT equals to simple interest times 100. So I'm looking for R. How do I make R the subject of the formula? So what are those variables that are attached to R? So they are PT. So you divide both sides by PT over PT, so that this P cancels P, this T cancels T, and R is left alone. So my R becomes simple interest times 100 divided by PT. So here, this is a formula to be used when solving for it. Now, to find your time, you still make use of the basic formula, which is simple interest equals to principal times rate times time divided by 100. You divide the SI by 1. You cross multiply. So that will be PRT equals to, that is 1 times PRT is PRT equals to simple interest times 100. Simple interest times 100. So let me transfer it here. So we have principal times rate times time equals to SI times 100. So I want to make t the subject of the formula. So what is the coefficient of t? That is, what are those variables attached to t? It is PR. So you divide both sides by PR over PR. So that this P cancels P, this R cancels R, so T is left alone. So we have T equals to simple interest times 100 divided by principal times rate. So this is the formula. So this is the formula for simple interest. This is the formula for principal, the formula for rate, and the formula for time. Now let us apply this formula to solve the samples that have been given. So let's take, for instance, this simple interest wasn't given, and we were given the principal, the time, and the rate. So the simple interest formula is what I'm going to apply. Simple interest equals to principal times rate times time divided by 100. So I will just substitute each of the values. My principal is what? 100. That is 100 times my rate is what? 5%, which is 5 over 100 times my time is what? 3 years times 3 over 1. So you have to reduce it to its lowest term. So these two zeros cancels this with zeros, so nothing is left again. So what I'm left with, 5 times 3. 5 times 3, that will be 15. 15 what? Simple interest is a form of a currency. So my answer should be in form of currency, which is $15, which is how this $15 was derived at. Now let's take a look at the second example now. Let's take, for instance, our rate is not given. Let's take, for instance, our rate is not given. If the rate is missing, how do we find 8%? So since this is what we're looking, which is the R rate. So the formula for the rate is simple interest times 100 divided by principal times time. Rate equals to simple interest times 100 divided by principal times time. Now we need to substitute each of the values. So my simple interest here is 54 times 100 divided by, what is my principal here? 150, and my time is 4.5 years. This is my principal here is 150 times. So my 4.5 years have to be converted to a mixed fraction. So that will be 4 times 2, 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. So my time will be 9 over 2. 9 divided by 2. So let's expand it. So that will be 54 times 100. This is a division sign. I can as well write divided by 150 times 9 over 2. So let me just separate this into a bracket like this. So if I'm to reduce this to its lowest term, it becomes so 54 times 100, that'll be 5,400 divided by, so let's reduce this one in the bracket to its lowest term. So 2 here 1, 2 in 15 is 7, remainder 1, 2 in 10 is 5, that is 75. So to be divided by 75 times 9. 75 times 9 should be let's quickly make a rough work here. 75 times 9, that will be 5. 9 times 5 is 45. 5, we carry a 4. 9 times 7, that is so 75 times 9 will be 675. So that will be 54 times 100 is 5,400 divided by we've these values in the brackets have been reduced with lowest term, so which is 675. So when you divide this, that should give us 8. So my rate is what I'm looking for, and rate is always in percentage. So that is how this 8% was derived as. So that's just it. You can also apply the same formula here. You're still going to get the same value. So you can see there's an assessment here already. Here's the question 1, question 2, question 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Thank you. See you guys in the next video.